Hey, I'm Shane, 45 years old, and my wife is Carrie, 44. We've been hitched for 23 years and have a daughter named Casey who's in her last semester of college. Casey has always been a source of happiness for us and she's now studying to become a math teacher. I grew up on a ranch in a little Texas town where I busted my butt working hard, playing sports, going to rodeos, and hanging out with friends. After high school, I went to college to study agriculture with the dream of becoming an agriculture teacher at a high school. My parents didn't have much money, so I had to work my way through school. I was working part-time to help out my family during my last semester of college when my parents decided to retire and sell the ranch to move into a smaller house in town. Sadly, they were both killed in a car accident right after my graduation. I was their only child and ended up inheriting around $400,000 from the sale, which was a shock because they never told me the exact amount. The months that came after were really tough as I mourned the loss of my parents, especially since they were out of nowhere. They kicked the bucket, but I kept on keeping on and snagged an opportunity to teach AG science at a high school near Austin. I also decided to splurge my inheritance on a sweet 25-acre ranch on the edge of town. There, I built a fancy log cabin, a horse stable, and a training ring for the horses. I plan on raising cattle too. I wasn't really on the hunt for a relationship, but I was open to the idea of finding someone to settle down with and start a family. That's when I met Carrie. Yo, it's been a month since school started and thanks to my mentor teacher's help, I finally mustered up the courage to ask Carrie out. She's a dime piece, and our first date was lit dinner, drinks, and deep convos on her balcony. I couldn't help but wonder why such a catch like her was still single. Turns out, she was feeling the same way about me, complimenting my looks and all. Man, I was blushing like crazy when I told her that I've never felt this way about anyone before. She's really something special, Shane. Thanks for understanding. Most of the guys I've dated were either idiots or just plain wrong for me. But today, man, I've never felt this way before. I looked at her, our eyes met, and we kissed. It wasn't some wild French kiss, but a sweet, caring one. We stayed in that moment for a while, then I finally spoke up. Carrie, I want to see you again. We don't have to jump into anything, but I'm curious to see where this leads before we dive in. I just want to make sure I really get you, Shane. You're seriously one of the nicest guys I've ever met, a real gentleman. Most guys would already be trying to make moves, she interrupted. I laughed and replied, I'd be lying if I said the thought hadn't crossed my mind. You're incredibly beautiful and interesting, even though we've only just met. I really respect you and I want to build a genuine relationship, not just a quick fling. She leaned in for another kiss before saying, Me too, Shane. You're one of a kind and I'm excited to get to know you better. Carrie comes from a low-income family and decided to learn administrative secretarial skills instead of going to college. She's been working at a small but successful company in Austin for a few years now. Over the next few months, we got closer and eventually fell in love. About 4 weeks after our first date, we had our first intimate moment. It was a passionate and intense scene in the front seat of my pickup truck. So, we were watching a movie and then things got heated real quick. We could barely make it to the truck before our desires took over. The windows fogged up and the truck was rocking as we were feeling pure bliss. The car was all in, you could feel her excitement filling up the cab with her screams of joy. We ended up at my place and spent the night wrapped up in each other's arms. It was a night of deep connection and passion that solidified our love. In March, she moved in with me and on June 1st, we tied the knot. Casey came along just over a year later and we had a happy family life for the next 23 years. We were content despite our struggles. Our financial situation was great because we had a lot of money. Our marriage was strong, with both of us being enthusiastic about our cars. I have to admit, though, our closeness had decreased over the past 5 or 6 months. But there was still a spark, or was there? Here's what happened. About 23 years later, around 6 months ago, Carrie got a new job as the executive secretary for the CEO and owner of BBB Enterprises. Her boss, Benjamin Brockman, ran a company that made fancy electronics for the U.S. government. He was really rich, so I thought the business was really taking off, especially since he was the only owner. Carrie seemed to be loving her new position and always had nice things to say about her boss Ben. At first, I was a bit jealous until I met him. At 58, He was going bald and overweight, making me feel like a supermodel compared to him. When I asked Carrie about it, she just laughed and told me that no one could compare to me, darling. She was always thanking me for our special moments together, which made me feel better. But then my worries came back when Carrie started going to work with him for 2 or 3 days. I asked about going out for fun, but she said it was just work stuff and that she already had plans. Carrie didn't give me a reason to not trust her, so I didn't argue. Fast forward to that important Friday. When I got home from school, I went straight to the barn. I'd been there for almost an hour when Carrie showed up. As she got out of her car and walked towards the house, I called out to her, saying I wanted to talk and hang out. Carrie came home after being away on another work trip for 3 days. She gave me a quick nod before going inside. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and asked her if she wanted a beer or a glass of wine. She said wine would be great, still not looking at me and seeming anxious. I gave her the wine and put the bottle next to her. Finally, Carrie looked up at me and seemed upset. After we exchanged kisses and hugs, I asked her what was wrong, noticing her behavior. Carrie seemed worried as she quickly downed her wine and poured herself another glass. Her actions showed that she was going through something inside. I told her to open up and share what was bothering her, assuring her that it couldn't be that bad. She insisted on how serious the situation was and asked me to listen without interrupting. I waited anxiously for her to speak, not knowing what to expect next. Then she finally said, "Shane, I want you to know that I love you no matter what. What I'm about to say doesn't mean I don't love you. Dude, you suck as a husband, partner, friend, and father. But I gotta give it to you, you're one incredible dude. So, here's the deal, I'm filing for divorce. I'm leaving right now. And yeah, your suspicions about Ben and me are spot on. We've been hooking up for the past 5 months, and now he's head over heels for me. We're planning to tie the knot once this divorce is done. We'll split everything fair and square, but you get to keep the house and ranch. Cool with that? I'm just gonna grab my stuff, clothes and personal things," she said, pausing for a moment to let her words sink in. "Go ahead," I replied, trying to stay calm despite my anger and hurt. "I'll file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Let's make this whole process quick, easy, and painless," she continued, giving me a chance to respond. "Carrie, do you love Ben?" she asked. "I admire him and find him interesting. Maybe I'll grow to love him eventually. Does Ben satisfy you more physically? Is he a better lover than me? Were you not happy with how close we were?" "No, Shane, he doesn't even come close. You've always been amazing in bed and I've always been satisfied with you," she reassured. "Did I do something wrong? Are you mad at me? I don't get why you're ruining our marriage and breaking up our family, Carrie. I'm really confused, I'll admit. Shane, when I'm nice to Ben, he spoils me with expensive gifts. He worships me and loves to show his gratitude. He thinks marrying him will bring a life of luxury. She's all about living the good life, not having to work and indulging in fancy stuff like luxury cars, world travel, expensive clothes, and fine dining. Basically, she's looking to upgrade to a sugar daddy. There's a name for what she's doing, and it starts with a G, I snapped back at her, while Carrie cried and swore she wasn't a gold digger. She said sorry for hurting me, but insisted on chasing after a rich husband. I told her how much pain her choices were causing me. I told her how bummed out I was, talking about the 23 years of busting my ass to take care of her, giving her everything from love and affection to my whole heart and soul. I said sorry for not meeting her money expectations. Then I asked for some space and said I'd be chilling in the barn while she packed up. I could tell she felt bad, but she was too focused on her new cash flow. I sat on a hay bale in the barn and suddenly felt a huge wave of emotion hit me. This time felt different, and tears started flowing down my face. I hardly ever cried, but this time was an exception. My old man always said guys don't cry, but in that moment I was just feeling so damn hopeless. I couldn't help but wonder if I could have done something different, if it was somehow my fault. Those thoughts were like a knife in my heart as I mourned, knowing this was the last time Carrie would affect me like this. She walked into the barn, looked at me, and said, "Oh my God, what have I done? Shane, why are you crying? Have I really hurt you that bad?" "I'm so sorry, Shane," she said. "I didn't mean to. You came home out of the blue and dropped the bombshell on me, that you're leaving, that you're tearing our family apart, that you're moving out and filing for divorce. So, you want to divorce me because you've been seeing some other dude for the past 5 months. And on top of that, you say it's because I don't make enough money. But you still love me. Yeah, right. Looks like love ain't a priority for you anymore, Shane. Well, I'm outta here. Ben and I are jetting off to Paris tomorrow morning for a few days. When I get back, I'm gonna start the divorce process ASAP. You seem eager to end our 23-year marriage. Did you even think about how Cassie will react? I'll call her tonight. She'll get it. Ben's got my back. Hey, I promised to buy her a new Mercedes and pay off her student loans, even the ones you borrowed. But no thanks, Carrie, I can take care of my own money. And I don't think Cassie can be bought like you. She gave me a weird look and stayed quiet. You should probably go, Carrie. But just remember, once you leave, it's over. I'm not taking you back. This relationship is a mess, so don't come running back to me. And don't forget to please your sugar daddy tonight. I could tell she was thinking about what I said. I hoped she would. I thought about it again, but she still said goodbye. I told Shane I love him and will miss him. He replied with a sweet response. Then Carrie said she loves me too. After sitting down and crying some more, I finally pulled myself together and decided to move on. I talked to my 2 horses, telling them they were the only ladies left in my life and that I believed in their loyalty. I walked over, petted them both, and they nodded and nudged me before I went back to my empty house. I grabbed another beer. About an hour later, Cassie called and asked, "Dad, are you okay? Mom has gone crazy, what is she thinking?" She's with some rich guy thinking his money will make her happy. I told her I couldn't fulfill all her dreams, that's bullshit. Dad, she really believes this old dude and his money will make her life complete. She even tried to convince me he'd be a great stepdad, offering me a new car and paying off my college debt. I told her to shove that car where the sun don't shine. I had to laugh, thankfully my kid could see through it. I reassured her during our chat. I was feeling better after she said she had my back and wouldn't mess with any sugar daddies. After a few drinks, I passed out on the couch. But I had some scary dreams that night. One of them was in a mall where I caught Carrie giving Ben a BJ in the women's dressing room. She saw me, laughed, and kept going even though Ben's peen was only 2 inches. The next morning, my old college buddy Jerry called me, reminding me how we've kept in touch. So, this dude has been telling me for years that he works for the FBI's fraud division and he was the best man at our wedding. He's still one of my closest buddies. It had been a few months since we last talked, so when Jerry hit me up with a "How you been?" I asked him the same. He said he was doing pretty good and then asked about me. I told him things weren't going so great. Carrie had left me the day before and wanted a divorce. That's why I reached out to him. Jerry said he needed to come visit me. So, I was in town and this dude offered to come over right away if I was cool with it. I asked Jerry how he knew about Carrie leaving me, and he said he didn't know, but he did have some info that he thought I might want to hear. I agreed to meet up with him soon and was curious about what Jerry could possibly know about my situation. Everything was getting weirder by the minute, but I wasn't thinking about getting back at anyone. I just had this sinking feeling that something was up. Jerry showed up about 30 minutes later and I gave him a cup of coffee as we sat on my back porch that lovely morning. Jerry mentioned how peaceful and pretty the surroundings were before bringing up his sadness about my marriage falling apart. Even though I had already filled him in on everything, he didn't seem shocked. "Jerry, it looks like you already knew about Carrie and Ben," I said. "Shane, what I'm about to tell you stays between us," Jerry warned. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but as your friend, I feel like I have to. We never had this conversation, got it? You can't tell anyone." "Hey, Jerry, this situation is way worse than just a marriage issue. It's Shane, and it's some serious business. I'm involved in an operation with Benjamin Brockman, who we think has been scamming the government with contracts, possibly ripping off millions from the US. If we can prove it, he's screwed. We've been undercover collecting evidence for a few months, maybe a couple more, and I think we'll have enough to nail him." "Wow, Jerry, this is amazing. I can't stand that idiot. I would do anything to take him down, it would help Carrie, right?" How could she be so stupid to leave you for him? That was a terrible decision on her part. Plus, Carrie, his executive secretary, is now under investigation. Holy crap, Jerry, is Carrie in on the scam too? We don't think so, we haven't found any evidence that she knows about his crimes. But she's gonna get caught up in all this mess as it unfolds. She's in for a rude awakening, poor thing. She found herself a rich new man and she's gonna live happily ever after. While we were keeping an eye on her, we found out she's fooling around with Ben. I waited until I had enough evidence, then I was gonna let you know, Shane. I think her thirst for money made her cheat on you. Jerry opened his briefcase and threw a big packet at me, saying, here's all the proof you need for their affair, use it in your divorce if anyone asks. You didn't get this from me. I opened the envelope and found 8x10 photos, emails, and some real explicit stuff. Man, those movies were just straight up showing them getting it on, with all the details of when and where. It was pretty hard to watch and it really messed with my emotions. But I stayed cool and gave props to Jerry for trying. Funny enough, in the close-up shots of her face during the sexy times, Carrie didn't seem like she was into it at all. She was faking it big time. I know how she acts when she's enjoying herself, and she definitely wasn't showing that during our lovemaking. And here's the kicker, Ben definitely wasn't packing much down there. Jerry even pointed it out and said he needed to bounce. Hey, he said he's sticking around for a bit longer but thinks the big day with Brockman is coming up soon. Jerry, how about we grab dinner tomorrow night? I owe you big time for all your help during this mess. That sounds great. Oh, by the way, my sister Ashley is coming into town tomorrow. Mind if she joins us? Of course not, I haven't seen her since she was a kid with braces. She's 36 now and I've heard she's gorgeous. Funny enough, her divorce was finalized today. Seems like she got back home early from something. Hey, so I was on a work trip and caught my husband cheating with his secretary. Maybe we should chat about that sometime. By the way, my friend is a big shot lawyer and just opened a new office. Maybe she can hook you up with a good divorce attorney. I'll ask her for you. See you tomorrow. The next night, I ran into Jerry and his sister Ashley at a Mexican restaurant. She was just as nice as he said she was. She gave me a big hug and kiss on the cheek. I teased her about it later. So, I ran into this girl I knew back when she was just a 13-year-old with braces and pigtails. She laughed and said she's all grown up now, a real woman. Looking back, I confessed to teasing her about her braces, but now she's one of the most stunning women I've ever seen. Ashley and I talked about our issue over dinner after Jerry filled her in on the situation. We decided to keep it hush-hush because of the ongoing investigation. Jerry recommended spreading the photos and videos, pretending they were leaked by a private source. Hey, so I told them that Carrie is gonna dump her husband when she gets back from Paris, saying they can't work out their issues. Then Ashley butted in, saying we should be proactive. She knows this amazing lawyer who's great at handling cheating and divorce cases. She totally screwed over my ex, so I've got her contact info in my room. We can grab it later and start things up on Monday to serve Carrie when she gets back. Things were moving fast, but I was impressed by Ashley's boldness. I was even thinking she might be up for going out with me. Jerry got a call towards the end of dinner and had to leave. He offered to pay the bill, but I insisted on treating. Ashley and I finished our margaritas and got ready to leave. She suggested going dancing while it was still early in the night. I agreed and we found a spot nearby. We spent the next couple of hours dancing, drinking beer, and having a great time together. We really clicked and got along well. I felt at ease and happy in her company. Afterwards, we went back to the restaurant to pick up her stuff. She asked me to follow her to her hotel so she could give me the lawyer's card. Once we were in the room, she gave me the card and told me to call her friend's cell phone the next day to set up a meeting on Monday. She said she would let her friend know in advance and was confident that they would be flexible. I thanked her and wondered how I could ever repay her. She responded by hugging me and giving me a passionate kiss. We both kissed and then walked over to the bed. We were totally making out for a bit before we had to stop to catch our breath. In between, I told her how much I wanted to kiss her ever since I first laid eyes on her. She complimented me on my looks and charm. We kept on kissing passionately and started feeling each other up. She ran her hands over me through my jeans, and I got really turned on as I slipped my fingers under her shirt. I suggested we take things slow because I didn't want her to feel vulnerable after her divorce. She reassured me by setting boundaries. So, this older lady told me straight up that she knows what she wants and she's really into me. She's hoping I feel the same way, but I can't help but wonder if she's just using me. She opened up about how she first found out her husband was cheating, and she blamed herself at first, questioning if she was lacking in some way. But eventually, she realized it wasn't her fault and saw her own attractiveness and confidence. She's optimistic that I won't beat myself up over her husband leaving her for me. So, she was just sitting there, telling me about how she was stressing out the night before, thinking she was the reason for everything going wrong. She was worried she wasn't being a good enough husband to meet his wife's expectations. But after hanging out with me that night, she realized it wasn't her fault. He reassured her that he's been doing his best as a father, husband, and lover. They kissed a bit, but mostly just cuddled on the bed, feeling comforted by each other's company. The next morning, they woke up together. He asked her to come over for lunch and then suggested they go horseback riding, which she loved. They eventually ended up on the couch where things got steamy, but it was just a heavy make-out sesh. He mentioned that they decided to keep seeing each other and see where it goes. He even took Monday off to meet with Julia, the lawyer recommended by Ashley. He shared his story and all the evidence he had. Julia seemed appalled by his wife's behavior, which wasn't shocking considering her 30-year legal career. Julia suggested we should file for divorce because of cheating and being left alone. She wanted to own the ranch and assets, and we had $10,000 in savings which we were going to split. I wanted to keep all the money in our bank account. Ashley was already paying her car loan and had a credit card under her name, so she decided to keep both. I was covering her auto and health insurance. Julia advised me to cancel them as soon as possible. Any credit cards under both our names will be canceled. Julia pretty much had everything covered and said we would. Don't use raunchy pics or videos unless you really need to. Julia was asking me when Corey was coming back from Paris. I told her it should be Thursday morning. I gave Julia the address Corey gave me for forwarding emails. Julia said she'd be ready for him Thursday morning. She might not like the cheating part, but I think she'll agree to everything else. She seemed happy with her new financial situation and ready to get divorced quickly so she can marry Mr. Brockman. Julia suggested we let Corey know. So, she was gonna change the cheating part of the divorce papers if she signed them as they were. I said yes, making it clear that I wanted Corey to own up to cheating. Around 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, my phone rang and since I didn't have any classes, I picked up. Corey was pissed, asking why she got divorce papers when we had agreed that I would be the one to file. I told her that I never agreed to anything and was just trying to speed up getting what she wanted. I was questioning the wording of the divorce papers, specifically the parts about infidelity and abandonment. I suggested that it be changed to irreconcilable differences. Corey made it clear that she hadn't agreed to anything and hinted that I might end up marrying a rich man soon. She said she would change the reasons to irreconcilable differences if I signed the settlement as it was. I told Julia that Corey wanted a corrected copy for Ben's lawyer to review if he agreed. I was gonna sign after catching Julia up on my chat with Corey. Julia had the fixed papers all set to go as we had planned. She mentioned how she knew Ben's lawyer was trying to pass him off as some big-shot business attorney with zero experience in divorce stuff, and she guessed he'd try to get Corey to sign without really thinking about it. And sure enough, Corey signed the papers and dropped them off at Julia's office on Friday afternoon, just like Julia had predicted. I swung by after work to sign them myself. The divorce should be all wrapped up in 60 days. I gave Ashley a call and we agreed to meet up grabbed some food near her new job, had a good meal and talked for 2 hours. Ashley knew we had some stuff to discuss, and yeah, we did. We decided to hold off on any cuddly stuff until Saturday night. Later on, Corey called to check up on me and said she couldn't use sweet nicknames with me anymore. I stuck to my guns and said I'd survive despite the pain she put me through, pointing out how much she hurt me. But I also made it clear that it didn't matter anymore because she had reached her goal, and sadly I was no longer what she wanted. Corey said sorry, explaining that she didn't mean to upset me and that she still loved me a lot. I replied dismissively, telling her that as part of the agreement, I would cut off her car and health insurance, giving her until next Friday to sort out coverage. She thanked me and said Ben would handle everything. I made it clear that I wasn't worried, just informing her. As our conversation ended, Corey said goodbye, hoping that I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't think she was a bad person for what she did. She told me she had to do what she had to do and reassured me that she still loved me. At that moment, I started to get emotional. I knew Corey could sense it as I said my final words, bidding her farewell and wishing her a happy life with her new man. I hung up before she could say anything else. It was time for me to start fresh and I had plans for Ashley to be a big part of it. Ashley came over to my place around 6 p.m. on Saturday. She looked beautiful and... Yo, let me paint you a picture. She's like 5 feet 9 inches with stunning blonde hair, killer legs, and curves for days. She's like a goddess, with these full lips just begging for a kiss. And she's rocking this little red dress that's showing off her cleavage, driving me crazy. I could feel my desire building up, you know what I'm saying. We had a bomb-ass meal on my deck, looking out at the ranch, with plenty of wine flowing. We ate, drank, flirted, and talked for like 2 hours. And then, she looked at me and was like, if you don't take me to bed soon, I'm gonna explode. She called me a cowboy, so I just picked her up and carried her to my bedroom. We didn't waste any time getting naked and having a good time together. Over the next couple of weeks, Ashley and I hung out a lot. I suggested she move in, but she wanted to wait until my divorce was official. Still, she ended up spending many nights in my bed. About 5 days before my divorce was final, Jerry called me and said we're about to go after Brockman and his business. They've got enough evidence and witnesses to seize everything he owns. What about Corey? I asked. She's gonna be questioned, but it looks like she's in the clear. She's gonna lose her financial assistance though. Jane's in for a rough ride, but that's her problem, I guess. Shane, just so you know, my sister is really happy about your relationship. She was pretty upset after her divorce. Any chance you'll be my... Hey bro, I hope so too, Jerry. It all depends on whether she's cool with it. But I can tell you that I've totally fallen for your sister, Shane. And she feels the same about me. I'll keep you posted on what's happening with Brockman. Wouldn't be surprised if Carrie reaches out to you. It was Friday and I was pumped to hang out with Ashley for the weekend. It was also the day my divorce with Carrie was officially done. On my way home from work, I swung by a convenience store to grab some beer for the weekend. What happened next is a whole other story. Can you believe my luck? Carrie actually called me out of the blue and wanted to meet up. I agreed to grab lunch with her and even invited Ashley along, but she knew something was up and decided to pass. I ended up taking the whole week off work with plans to quit once I found a replacement. We were also busy helping Ashley move into my place. Carrie and I finally met up at a fancy downtown restaurant. I was shocked when I saw her. She had put on some weight and didn't look great. The past few days must have been something else. Man, it was tough for her. The media was all over her, saying she was Brockman's side piece. People couldn't stop staring and gossiping when she walked in. We found a spot outside away from prying eyes, and that's when she just started pouring her heart out. Leaving you, Shane, was the biggest regret of my life, she cried. And it wasn't just because Ben got busted. She'd been feeling it for weeks. So, I moved in with this guy thinking it would be fun, but the money part got old real quick. I was unhappy and felt awful every time I had to be close to him. I never saw this coming. Carrie went on, when I left you, I thought money was everything. Now I'm filled with guilt for what I did to you and Casey. Casey hardly talks to me now. You didn't deserve that, Shane. You were a good husband and provider. I had everything I needed, I just didn't realize it. Thanks, Carrie. I hear ya, you were honest, but let's face it, you made those choices because you weren't feeling me completely. I was happy with you, Shane. She kept saying I let that old creep manipulate me. He lured me in, convincing me to leave you for him and his cash. He took advantage of me the night before he got busted. He's a disgusting, perverted old man. I hope he rots in jail. I wanted to laugh, but I held back. Where is this going, Carrie? What do you want from me? I asked, seeing tears fill her eyes. Please, Shane, take me back. I love you and I miss you so much. I miss our house, the ranch, the horses, and everything we had together. I'll do anything to make things right. Do you really miss me, or is it just because you're broke and homeless? I asked. I'm broke, Shane, with nowhere to go, she admitted, but I miss you so much. I want things to go back to how they were before. When you left, I made it clear that it was over for good. There's no going back, I said again. I know, Shane, but I really need you. You know, I'm completely lost and don't know what to do. You're my last hope. I'm sorry, Carrie, but I've moved on and found love with someone else. We're planning to get married eventually, but we're taking it slow because of our past relationships. I told Carrie and she looked heartbroken, tears rolling down her face. It seemed like she never thought about me moving on. She sat there crying, and I couldn't help but feel bad for her. I used to think about getting back at you when you left, but now I just want to help. I asked her, is there anything I can do? Hey Carrie, is there anything I can do to help you out? I know I messed up and I don't blame you for not wanting me back. But, if you could lend me $5,000 until I get back on my feet and find a job and a place of my own, that would be amazing. I'm crashing at a friend's place right now, but I really need my own space. How much do you need, Carrie? I was hoping you could spot me $5,000 and I'll pay you back once I start working again, I asked. She replied, sure, I can help you out with that. I'll start paying you back as soon as I find a job. As the waiter brought our food, Carrie started eating, but I had lost my appetite. I watched her eat and then pulled out my checkbook. I gave her a check and said, Carrie, this should help you start fresh. You're a great secretary, so you'll find a job. If not, just tell me and I'll see what I can do. I'm sorry things didn't work out as planned. I wanted to grow old with you, holding hands, watching our grandkids ride horses, and being buried next to you on a ranch. But it seems fate had other ideas. With that, I got up from the table, left the restaurant, and left 1100 to cover the bill and tip. I took one last look back. When she opened the check, she looked shocked and couldn't believe it. By the time she looked up, I was already out of there. I left her a check with a cheeky message and smirked as I left. She watched from the deck as I drove off. Later on, Ashley moved in and we got married the next spring. Jerry was my best man and Casey was the maid of honor. They had become really good friends. We had the wedding in Vegas at Caesar's Palace with just a small group of friends and family. The reception was in our honeymoon suite and it was a blast. Man, that was a wild time for everyone. I hit the jackpot on a slot machine and won over $200,000, showing off my gambling skills. Carrie wasn't there, but she heard about it in the local paper. She eventually found a job and a place to live, but she never paid back the loan, which I didn't expect. Word is she's dating a high school English teacher now. I hope she's happy. Meanwhile, Ben Brockman went to trial and got convicted of federal crimes. So, this guy got busted for his crimes and now the government took all his stuff to pay them back. He's gonna be locked up for a while. Maybe he'll make some new friends in there who are more his type. Thanks for listening to the story today. If you liked it, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have a story to share about your own situation or someone else's, don't be shy, hit me up. Take care.